Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the Stay Creative Podcast, a show dedicated to celebrating independent artists and sharing their art and story. I have found that when we listen to a person talk about their passion, we can take some of it for our own. So this show is also dedicated to you, the listener, not only becoming a fan of the guest's work, but also taking another step towards growing as an artist and loving the artist you already are. The world is a better place with you and your creations in it, and I am grateful for this time that I get to share my current favorite artists with my future favorite artists. Today I'm talking with three of my talented friends about their experience with discipline and routine. They'll be sharing some of the insights they've developed in their own time, looking for routines and the discipline that they use to create their music, as well as the practical tips they've discovered along the way. First up, you're going to hear a track by our old friend Soran Leif. In the middle, you'll hear one from our new friend, Rapkins. And at the end is everyone's favorite, somewhat Incognito.
It's hard to simplify. Some things are better unknown. It's hard to simplify. It's hard to simplify. Some things are better unknown. It's hard to simplify.
So, hey guys, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. I would love to give each of you an opportunity to introduce yourself and introduce the project you represent.
I'm Rapkins, and that is also the name of my solo project. Just in general, I live a very musical life. It's my primary way of having fun and socializing and seemingly getting people to like me and boost my self-esteem. Like, most of my free time has been dedicated towards music and like filling out like all the corners of my life. For the solo project, it tends to be where I use music to get out like the big inexplicable feelings, you know, like the stuff that I feel like words are not doing justice, and trying to get the world to understand me and all that like heavy duty stuff like that. It's not really where I go to like chill out with music. It is kind of like an exorcism, And I guess that's the one constraint that kind of seems to naturally fall upon it. There's no genre constraints. I'd say it generally falls into like a pop rock sphere, but not consciously. And it can kind of go wherever stylistically. I started playing piano when I was 4. It was really early starter. But I don't think I really understood music as an exorcism until like age 14. There was a few really important songs that came along at that time and like showed me that it's more than just a way to show off, and I don't know, like more than just something to have fun with, that it is like this tool for emotional catharsis unlike any other for me, as someone who always felt difficulty like expressing things through words. It seemed like a tool that I could use to just feel better emotionally.
I think that that's a really common, not exactly what you're describing, but I do believe that is a common thread in people who simply listen to music as well. Like they, at a certain point, they hear a feeling or a sound that resonates with something difficult in them or in their own lives, and that like becomes a point of catharsis. So that song gets added to a list of favorite songs, you know. But when you learn to make those sounds yourself, it almost becomes like a surgical exorcism, you know. You get to root around in there and find it yourself, as opposed to wait for it to find you. That's excellent, man. I like that. So I would like to move on to our first returning guest of today's episode, which is Mark.
My name is Mark. I have kind of a DIY music project called Somewhat Incognito that I've been doing for not quite 2 years now, but like 1.5 years or so, maybe. I don't even know. The project is kind of, I guess you could describe it as maybe indie-tronica, alternative rock with electronic kind of fusions going on. It's funky, boppy kind of fun pop music. Music in general has been a big passion of mine for the last 2 years. I'm super into it, and I love the process of self-improvement. And so that's, to me, that's a big part of what it's all about, is like, here's this thing that I can do with just the materials I have in my room, and I can progressively get better and better at it as I focus on it. I find it super rewarding to just hear it advance little by little over time.
It was hard to grasp that repetition leads to growth in other areas of my life. Have you found that learning that through art and through music have translated to other aspects of your own life?
It's like almost inverse of that for me. This hyper-focused progression where you're slowly getting better and better at a skill, I think sunk in with probably web development for me. I was working as a web developer, and similar in a lot of ways in that the beginning is very hard. You're not making any progress. You just feel like you're bashing your head against a wall. And then you kind of get over this first step. Everything before that step is way easy now. And I kind of applied that process to making music when I started doing this. And it has worked really well for me. I've been treating my songs like almost like a software development project.
That's awesome. You also have a companion blog.
I do, somewhatincognito.com. Check it out. And in there, I kind of write liner notes almost of it's the backstory of each thing that I do. I just say like what I was thinking about, what new things did I try when I made this track, what new VSTs or tools did I use, and what did I discover about them. So I'm just kind of like blogging my process of getting better, and it's not just for other people, it's also for me. I can go back and be like, what was I doing a year ago? And I can go look and see, oh, that's when I figured out how to sidechain, and I wrote about it here. And it's a nice little thing for me to have.
Yeah, that's excellent. It reminds me, the same way you brought up treating this creative process like web development, it reminds me of how people will leave notes for themselves in their code. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Last but not least, of course, Soran, Leif, joining us all the way from Bentley's house.
Hey, man. So my name's Bentley's dad, or Soran Leif. I've been on the show too before.
Oh, I didn't mention that. Yeah.
No. All jokes.
They already know. Everyone has heard. A lot of people skip Mark's episode. They're like, somewhat incognito. Who's heard of him? Soran Leif. Yes, please. They've all heard that one.
Oh man, Soaring Leif's dope. No, I guess I can start with why do music in general. It just turns into there's not too many things that I'm great at, but music I find is not only therapeutic for me, but just like Mark said, is that the whole consistency base and watching yourself get better as time goes by. Music has been the number one thing that I've noticed in my life as I work more at it. It's not like I'm just beating my head against the wall. Now, people liking the music, that's a different story, but getting better at it, oh, 100%. And my major project is Life's Everyday Soundtrack, other than just releasing singles myself, because I wanted to create a project where artists really feel special. Because we all know as musicians that even with how loving some places are, it still can feel really isolating because you put so much passion into a project for people to be like, yeah, that's all right. I wanted to create a place where artists feel as special as they truly are.
Yeah.
That's Life's Everyday Soundtrack. And it's great. It's fantastic. It fills me with so much joy when I see other artists filled with so much joy. Getting that DM where people are like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. And I'm like, no, thank you, man. You were the best. That was fantastic. Like, I sure you saw Bentley in the back, but he approves. And it's hard because it's such a major project, but every time I do it, it's just so fantastic. Over the past year, nothing motivates me more than just seeing it grow, just seeing how people get involved with the creativity. And it's just been fantastic.
I want to give this as kind of an opportunity for you to shout out a specific artist or a specific track or a specific episode of Life's Everyday Soundtrack that you would offer to someone who has not encountered it before.
Don't watch any of the first ones other than the music, because like the music slaps. Don't get me wrong. The first few volumes were fantastic, but I was recording it on my phone. No one else was there with me. Mark was part of that first episode.
I was on episode 1. It was cool.
Yeah, he killed it. So yeah, go listen to the tracks. But I'm watching myself and I'm like, oh man, this was so awkward. Just like, yeah, next up, this is cool. Silence. All right now.
Yeah. I absolutely applaud the willingness to not remove that, to not hide how awkward at times starting a new thing is. Like, it's important to you, but that doesn't mean you're going to start out the best at it because you leave those earliest points up there. People can see that and say, yeah, I could get started on this. This is something I could try to do.
Oh, but yeah, no, I completely agree. And it falls back to the whole fact that people gave me a chance. Like, I know it's another way to promote yourselves, but again, Life's Everyday Soundtrack's all about connecting people with artist with a common goal and just seeing their creativity thrive from that. And in 1, 2, 3, where I think it was up till 5 or 6, where it was just me. And still, there's so many fantastic tracks. Like, I'm constantly blown away on how amazing people are. Well, I'm not blown away that they're amazing. I'm waiting for that volume where it's like, what happened? And so far, it's such a dynamic change in every track and volume. I'm just so blessed to be able to be part of it, even though it's a project I started. It's like, it blows my mind. My mind. And I think the episode to start with, any of the ones that actually feature someone, watch them all, please. Support the artists. They're fantastic. But just the back and forth conversation is amazing. I still remember there is an episode or a volume with Lom, and we're just sitting like, yeah, he should ramp it up and blah. And then he ramped up, and we're both like, it's one of my favorites because you can literally tell on the screen that we're both blown away, pushed back from the desk, started knocking over stuff. It was fantastic.
That's awesome, man. You've all already touched on some of what we are going to be talking about in today's theme. which is discipline and routine. I'd like to give you some time to tell me some more about your creative routines, the process by which you turn an idea into music that you release.
My big thing with music is I try to go for an emotion while I'm building that world, because every track has its own story. I just want it to elicit a feeling when someone's listening to it, when they'll sit there and it's like, man, this is hitting me in my soul. And that's kind of the goal. And when it comes down to actually taking that and running with it, I like to use different sorts of textures. So, yeah, you'll hear piano, yeah, you'll hear bass, guitar, drums, and all. But I like to morph those into, I guess, otherworldly sounds. I'm a huge fan of ethereal vibes. For those who haven't listened to my music, I'm not making like haunting OSTs. It just turns into, what is the feeling that I'm trying to build? Is this something that I can be proud of 10 years from now? Because I'm not trying to go after a particular top 40, get a popular quick type track. I'm trying to make something that I'm proud of when I'm older, that I can sit back and be like, Soran, man, you killed it. And then I can look Bentley in the eye and he's like, Dad, you killed it. And I'm like, man, who taught you to speak? And it just turns into always experimenting, because part of the issue that I'm always been jealous of people that can rock out stuff quickly. And I say that even though Life's Everyday Soundtrack's a monthly thing, Life's Everyday Soundtrack allows me to just experiment and throw everything at the wall and be like, you know what, it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. But it's just, just throwing things at the wall and being like, wow, this is it. And then sleeping on it and being like, man, what was I thinking? This is definitely not it. But it just comes down to not chasing after any sort of trend. It's important to be yourself in everyday life. I think it's more important to be yourself in music as well.
You have to be yourself. And that is something that you could find crocheted on a doily in your grandma's house. Be yourself. What does that mean? For me, what that means, if I examine that a little closer, is you've got to be present. You've got to be with what you're making, and you've got to be honest about who and where you are currently in your own kind of emotional landscape, I guess, and that people can hear when music or art has been phoned in. They can hear if the person creating it wasn't coming from a place within themselves, the way you're explaining. Like you want to build this emotion first. You've got to be aware and present and respectful of that emotion before you're going to be able to translate it into music.
As time goes on, music becomes like, it's already super international, but there's countless time after time where you'll have artists that you have no idea what they're saying, or it's an instrumental, and that feeling that you get from the track is just so, it moves you. It moves your heart, and that's my main goal. I want to add to someone's day, because I kind of, it's cheesy, but it's kind of the golden rule. Well, no, it's not the golden rule. The golden rule is important too. Everybody at home, you don't know who's going through what at any sort of time in their life. So if I'm putting out music that could potentially reach dozens of people, I want my minor influence on their lives to be a positive one.
Be yourself. Yeah, it's something people might ridicule as a trite cliche.
Yeah.
But it does have a much deeper meaning to it. And I'm thinking about how, like, I grew up, like with a lot of rock and roll stars, like preaching, like, be yourself, don't sell out. And then part of growing up, for better or worse, was realizing that a lot of them totally did sell out.
Yeah.
And that those words, like, there's an extent to which you can actually live them, in terms of trying to come at everything you do with an honesty as to who you are. But I think it also exists, like, almost paradoxically, like, you're also creating yourself. So like the act of being is the act of creating. you are simultaneously existing as what you are and creating that through your actions, which is a really interesting thing to me. You know, like I think it's a constant push and pull almost between this is what I am and this is what I want to be. And I think the creative process is kind of like bridging those two.
Felicia Day has a book called Embrace Your Weird, which is creative. It's kind of like a self-help book. But anyway, I saw that thing on the shelf at Barnes and Noble, and just that the title of the book made me say, you know what, I should make more music. And then I didn't even read the book. I just saw the title, and I was like, you know what, dude, like, yeah, I'm a little weird. I make quirky stuff. Maybe people won't like it. And then I saw that. I was like, you know what? I just need to embrace that, embrace the weird stuff that I like to do and put it out there. And so I've often encouraged people to embrace their weird when they're showing reservations around their style or whatever. They're feeling the doubt, which is going to come at some point in time for everybody.
I love the Steal Like an Artist author's way of saying, like, aim to rip off your favorite art, and the way you mess it up is going to be your art.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Embrace your weird. I love that, man. Mark, tell me some more about your own routine as far as how you turn an idea into a release.
All of 2020, I ran a pretty strict schedule. I'm changing that for 2021. I can talk about that later. But my 2020 thing was 2 tracks a month was my goal. And it ran through kind of this like 9-phase process that I have like written and outlined. It's on my website. But basically I go from a concept development, which is usually 1 or 2 days. So that's throwing ideas against a wall, quickly failing in the concept development phase. I'll make 3, 4, 5 things that I think might have potential to be a song and pick one. That's locked then for the next 2 weeks. So it's like, I'm not going to abandon it once I get past concept development. Then I get to structure complete, which is, it's basically in the shape of a song, but I haven't done a lot of the details yet. It's just, it's basically, it's about as long as it's going to be. I know where the verses and the chorus and the solo is going to be, but there's still a lot of work to do at Structure Complete. And this is the point where I post it online. I would put it on SoundCloud right around here at Structure Complete. And then I start sending it around, indie music feedback, Discord, asking friends, family, what do you think about this? Taking notes about comments I'm getting. I'll do a mixing round, do a bunch of revisions, put it back out for feedback a second time, more revisions, then release it. I did that for a full year. That whole process is on average maybe a little longer than a week. So there were months where I did 4 tracks, even though I was trying to do 2. It helped me rapidly develop. So it's like kind of a rapid development thing. And I didn't look at it as a track by track thing. I looked at it as me growing as an artist thing. I think I've passed that phase now. I'm going into phase 2 for 2021. I'm going to slow down the rate, but still spend the same amount of time. So in other words, rather than doing 2 a month, I'm going to do 1 a month, but still kind of have a schedule. I want to get into the details more now. So like, I think I brush over a lot of like fine details because I'm running this tight schedule.
I'll say this, Mark, I've heard some of your music and it does not sound like the music of somebody who brushes over the details. Not at all.
True.
But yeah, I think that's a compliment, but I can't wait to hear what you come up with when you spend more time on the details.
Yeah, same. By details at this point, he must mean putting hidden messages in there. You know, like he's gonna start weaponizing these songs. And
rewind that section. I think
that's a good idea. Actually, I'm writing that down.
Yes, write it down. River, please tell me some about your own routine.
First of all, to avoid just like saying "in my opinion" over and over, I'm just gonna say like, this is, if I talk about like things that I have found to work, they are things that work for me. I'm not like telling the secret artistic truth of the universe or anything like that. But
allow me to say that is every single episode of this show. Like there are no facts being.
I know, but I just want to lay that blanket out there. When I approach talking about routine when it comes to music, I guess I am a strong case of ADHD, and so I have a lot of energy and inspiration, but a lot of chaos inherent to anything that I do. When I talk about, I guess, like discipline and routine, it's all about harnessing that. And that's the battle I'm fighting, as opposed to like trying to inspire myself.
Yeah.
In the beginning, as common of people with ADHD. It's very chaotic, and I can't really speak to a single way how things start. But what I have learned to try to do is just be doing a lot of different things that tend to be the spark, like be journaling all the time, expressing myself through words, be improvising on the piano, be just like sitting there thinking about music, deep sea diving in my mind or something. And it's important to me also to make sure that that's a wide range of possibilities, because it allows me to like redefine my relationship to music quite a lot and keep it fresh, which is a big help when it comes to like I need to focus, and like I need to make sure that I am being creative, but I also need to be keeping it fresh. And then so that's how the ideas will usually come about. It'll be like one line that I wrote in my journal that I keep coming back to, or like just something on the piano that sounds nice. And then I think over time developed like what I refer to as like the squeaky wheel principle, which is like if I've had that initial inkling, I'm not going to immediately jump into bed with it, is what I've found. I want to kind of let them knock around in my head for a while. And in doing so, it'll kind of like weed out the ones that simply won't go away. And then those tend to be the ones that I really follow through on. It's kind of like a survival of the fittest thing in my brain, where I let the idea just kind of gestate in a few weeks. And if I forget about it or it goes away, then it might not have been worth pursuing. But the ones that are tend to really stick. And so then at that point, I don't really feel like I have to discipline myself, because if an idea lives that long, then it's like almost begging to be recorded and created in the material world. It would feel like a disservice to me and to people who might resonate with it if I don't do it. So then I've got lots of inspiration to finish it. The actual recording process is very chaotic for me. I can't really speak to, like, might start with like a demo on the piano, or it might start with me writing some MIDI in my DAW. Like anything is possible. But one thing that I've found in that process, which is my least favorite process, like the implementation part, I have found that I need to restrain myself from sharing early versions that I've come up with, because once I do that, that was in the phase of my music career where I was kind of never finishing anything. And when I like shared with my friends, like, look, I've gotten started on this idea, I kind of already had the pleasure and the release of having feedback on it and knowing that people heard it without actually finishing it. So I try my best not to do that.
I can feel your heart, an ember in the dark, and all I wanna be is here forever. I always used to need something to believe, but I find faith in me when we're together, and I see all I ever wanted somehow being granted. I never believed it, but I have been finally we find one another. Now it's up to you and me. Love, what should we be?
I just wanted to comment that just in talking to a lot of artists in IMF, I find that almost every single person has their own way, which I think is super interesting. It's different than most other trades. I don't know if you want to call this a trade, but in that everyone has some method process that seems to work for them, and it's different than everybody else's. So there is no right or wrong here. I just think that's really interesting and cool that music can work in a different way for every single person.
It's funny because there are right and wrong ways to do many of the aspects of creating music. For the most part, you want to be in key, you want to be in time, you want to tune your instruments, like all these little things that you absolutely can learn from a mentor or from a lesson or from a YouTube video. But then when you start applying them and mixing and matching them in processes that will create the art that you are passionate about, it's always going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just in this episode, we have some very different examples of how people work through things.
It's funny because all three of you make music that basically anybody could enjoy. That there are some styles of music in the world that I would categorize as challenging, hard bop jazz. You kind of got to ease into hard bop jazz, but the three of you all make music that seems like, oh yeah, these guys are professionals of some sort. They sit down, they write some words, they do a piano, and then they turn it into a song, But all of you have said, no, we get there completely different ways. There's no one road.
River's answer is like, I super appreciate the whole fact, like holding off till a project's finished, because in my creative process, I do a lot of snippets where it's like, okay, here's 30 seconds to a minute here. This is the overall idea of the meat of the song. Then I build from there. But I am a notorious sharer. Oh my goodness, man. I'm like, hey, I think this is hot. Then I'll share it and then I'll sleep on it. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, this was not hot. It was a mayday, false alarm. That's the beauty of being in interaction with you guys. Like, it's so fantastic because I know personally, when I try to get my friends involved, they're just like, yeah, man, it's music. I'm like, oh, man, okay.
Yeah.
When you all share with me or I share with you and sit back and you're like, yo, how'd you do this? This is fantastic. Or it's like, the drums are too heavy. Please don't. Either way, it's so good. It's so good. And I think it circles back to around the fact that music can be very isolating. And just being able to share ideas, it's a think tank.
I think it's important for people making good quality work, music, art, things that they feel proud of creating. I think it's important for those people to say as regularly as possible, not everything works for everybody. Not everything works for me all the time. Soran just said he'll share a thing and then the next day he wishes he hadn't. It's important to try things within your comfort zone, but also maybe just 1 foot out of the comfort zone to see what works for you best and what continuously calls you to that next step of your creative process, I think. What has been the most recent realization or skill that you've picked up that has been a game changer for you?
I feel like I haven't had any big level ups in a little while. There have been many along the way. Going back a year ago, I wasn't really even using EQ at all. So I remember just discovering how to use a high pass filter as this big aha moment in life.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, I've been missing this thing the whole time. That was a level up. Learning how to sidechain was a level up. Right now, I'm focusing on mastering techniques. I'm trying to learn more about mastering and different things you can do in it. And I'm still fairly early in that process, I think. I have learned some cool new things, different ways of applying EQs, left-right EQs to masters. And I've just been kind of reading about different techniques and then trying them and listening and seeing what I think I like. I've neglected mastering the whole time. And I know that's an important piece of the puzzle.
I think I'm right there with Mark, where it's been a second since I've leveled up. Not to be redundant for redundancy's sake, but mastering, it's the bane of all artists. If you're great at mastering, show me your ways. When I first started releasing stuff publicly, it turned into myself pigeonholing the type of music that I was good at, quote unquote, or that I wanted to push out. And as time went on, especially after my last track, Decisions, where I started just putting out what I like. Same thing with Glimpses of You. It's putting out music, not just for music's sake, but not to pigeonhole myself as an artist, because I was running into the whole identity crisis sort of thing where what type of artist do I want to be? And then it just turned into, I wanted to be a post-genre artist. I don't want to be by any sort of shackles. I just make music for music's sake.
Yeah.
My tracks might have like a crazy soundscape with some hip hop beats and some bluegrass vocals. Who knows? I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
My music's probably not gonna touch the mass majority just because of how it is and the style it is, but I'll be fine with my niche side of it, where
Mhm.
people go in and listen to it and be like, man, I've been looking everywhere for this type and I found it.
Learning to start playing music, you probably said, these are the rules of the style I want to make. And you got really good at operating inside those. And eventually taking those self-appointed rules off of yourself feels like a mistake, or feels like you're doing something wrong. And you've got to kind of find that freedom from your own shackles as much as you do anyone else's.
So I do have kind of a new way of thinking about it that came about in this past year. And it kind of has two parallel origins to it. And one of them is, as Soran was talking about, those shackles. Like, I was feeling a little bit shackled. And specifically, I felt like, even though I have learned a lot of instruments, I felt like whatever I was creating was like bounded by the geography of those instruments, if that makes sense. Like everything that I was doing was, like if I was sitting down, I was creating a song like a piano player would, or if I picked up a guitar, I was making a song like a guitar player would. And I wanted to like somehow completely free myself of what felt like constraints, which are just like the natural limitations of an instrument. And then on the other hand, this year I was getting into mindfulness, which is like the concept of just being present with your thoughts, which for an ADHD person is very, very hard, and was something that I was kind of like on a journey on of my own to just kind of get better at life in general. And so those two things kind of came together in the way where lately I've tried to just kind of sit with my thoughts for a long time and just kind of think a song into existence in some way. And a lot of times it is a total failure. It's really, really hard. Thoughts are a very fleeting material, or whatever they are. Like, they're not easy to solidify, but sometimes it really works out. And I felt a few times that when I did that, I had transcended some kind of boundaries that were established like by my way of approaching certain instruments when I sit down to play them.
Yeah.
During the creative process, it is always amazing to me how long I can just get stuck doing something that is not useful to me at all. Like playing the same loop over and over and over again and torturing myself over it, when any rational human being would step aside or like move on to a different part of the song. It is like amazing how long I could go never even thinking like, hey, this is not good for me or the song. And the more that you are kind of like centering yourself and taking stock of what's going on in your present situation, the more you can avoid those kind of ADHD pitfalls.
Yeah. That's excellent, man. I think that there's a lot of space to explore more of that, because I do believe people put ADHD as one of their excuses or one of their explanations. I don't want to use excuse. That's kind of a dismissive term, but one of the explanations they use to say they can't be creative or they can't make art. I think those kinds of conversations are important to have, and I'm really grateful you've shared that, man.
Thanks. Happy to.
Does your struggle with like ADHD and presence and just kind of this journey through mindfulness, does that come up any in the new album you've got coming out, the new concept album?
I would think so, yeah. So I'll start by giving a little overview of what I'm doing. I haven't finished any songs for it yet, but I am working on what started as a novel and then turned into a music, because that's what I do better than writing. But the story about a child, I haven't decided if it's a boy or a girl yet, it doesn't really matter. But they're growing up in this like primitive village with not a whole lot of the luxuries of what we would consider normal in a modern society. They discover a bunker where all of the adult parents are going down and using like little weird boxes of light and noise that we would know as televisions and phones. And it's kind of like a journey of how that changes their point of view and how that affects their journey of mind throughout the album. And speaking to the ADHD thing, I know that is a lot of what some people are saying is bringing about ADHD is the constant stimulus and all that stuff. So that is one of the guiding principles conceptually, is thinking about how overstimulus can cause difficulty just being present with your thoughts and all of that.
It's interesting too, because when you are the furthest from your own like kind of presence of mind, you want to look at your phone the most.
Yeah.
Like that's an autopilot thing that comes up almost automatically for me, specifically.
For sure.
That's cool, man. I really look forward, just having heard the music you make and having heard this concept from you, I'm really looking forward to hearing more of that. Do you have any sort of timeline? I know you said none of the songs are done yet, but any sort of timeline that we can look forward to?
No, the first song will be out soon. That's all
Awesome.
I can say. And the title is, for now, it's called I Saw Light, which is your idea, actually.
Hey,
You came up with that title, and I really liked it, and I think I'm going to stick to it.
Hey, man, that
All right.
I feel tingly. I feel warm having heard that. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, cool. Don't share any more about that, please. I want to thank my friends again for spending some time sharing their experience with me. I hope you take some time to listen to more of their music because it's good stuff, but I also hope you heard something in our conversation that feels like a practical tip or an idea that you can try as soon as possible to get yourself building your discipline, finding your style, and looking for the routines that are going to become your go-to ways of creating things. Cliches don't become cliches for no reason. It's true that there's no right and wrong way to make art. It's also true that it's going to take time for you to find the way that works best for you. So think about what you want. Do you want to produce an album every month? Do you want to find a way to communicate the things inside you with the outside world? Do you want to capture a single emotion in the form of sound? Because all those things are possible, and you don't have to pick just one. You can spend time trying all three. I know I am feeling very excited to see if I can combine all three at the same time like a mad scientist. If you like what you heard today, you can find links for the artists and this show in the show notes. Be sure to go and listen, like, and follow the artists where you can so the algorithm gods are beneficial for them. And share this show, leave a review, like or comment, whatever you can do on the streaming service you use. It would mean a lot to me for the sake of the show, but it would also mean a lot for this show's ability to promote these artists well, to honor the time they are sharing with us, and to love independent music a little bit better. But of course, your time is the first and best gift you can give, so thank you very much for listening. I hope to share more of that time very soon, but until then, please stay courageous, stay curious, and stay creative.